Hello and welcome to the OK Preps Extra Show. I'm Patrick Prince, joined as always by Barry Lewis. Barry, let's start with Gil Cloud, a man of tremendous respect and tremendous accomplishment, died on Saturday at the age of 78. I don't think you can understate his accomplishments. Um, but you knew the man, just your reaction to the news. Let's start there.
Well, I was stunned, even though I knew that he had been ailing. He's been ailing for a couple of years, but he was just seemed like someone who was just going to be around and present forever. And so I was stunned when I heard it. Didn't expect it this soon. So just very sad for 40. I've known Gil for 40 years, ever since he was I was starting out at the Tulsa Tribune covering high school sports, and he was at Union as the athletic director, and just had a really good relationship for those 40 years. And he's always very helpful, and just a very warm individual. Um, I mean, you hear about five-star ball players, ball players referred to as being five-star or five-tool players. That's a better term, five-tool players. Gil is a five-tool was a five-tool athletic director. I mean, he could do it all because, um, I mean, he had the knowledge. I mean, his background was great for the position. He'd been a student athlete. He had been a coach, and he was also a very it takes a special person to be an athletic director, especially of a large district, which Union has become. And you've got to be a fundraiser. That means you've got to be a people person, outgoing personality, and intelligence. Um, just, I think of him as a visionary. He was way ahead of his time in so many things when he was at Union. One of the things that uh, people sometimes forget is that he brought the National Junior College Championship football game. He was a driving force behind that, brought that to Union back in the late 80s and early 90s. What a wonderful event that was. We saw so many great players, and it was a great event for the city of Tulsa. Still wish we still had it. He when he was at Union as athletic director, he started a weekly radio show, like the All Frontier Conference show with J.V. Haney and Bill Land. I think they were at Ricardo's restaurant.
Ah,
And so that was way ahead of its time because, I mean, starting in the Gil could see the value of TV and radio being part of the high school sports scene. And so he took advantage of that. He was just way ahead of his time on so many things. And as far as facilities are concerned, it was really under his leadership at Union that Union they went from being a 3A school to being a really dominant, large school athletic force. And he's a man of principle. Uh, he always had the student, I mean, you hear this a lot, but he always had the student athletes first and foremost when he made decisions. And that wasn't just talk, he really did. I remember a time uh, when he was at Union, when I was asking him about a coach he had hired, Bob Cleland, basketball coach, who had really taken the program to another level on the basketball court. And we're talking about him being coach of the year. And Gil was just as excited about what Bob Cleland was doing in the classroom as a teacher as he was doing as a coach. And I mean, I forget which class he was teaching, but it was a class that was probably been too smart for me. But he said how the kids loved it, and he was such a great classroom teacher in addition to being a coach. So he's excited about what he was doing in the classroom, as much as he was as a coach. So just all those qualities um, that it takes to make a great athletic director, Gil had. And I know I'm rambling on, but it's easy to do thinking about 40 years worth of memories uh, when I think back at, you know, my relationship with Gil through the years.
so he took over TPS, and it was only supposed to be a short time, and it ended up being about a decade. Tell us about that.
Yes, Yeah, I believe the date was February 7th, 2012, when he was introduced that he was being
Of course,
hired
you remember that, Barry. Of
as an
course, you.
interim athletic director at TPS. And he and Keith Ballard persuaded him, the superintendent persuaded him to take the job for like 4 months, an interim basis, to clean up a mess. And it was a mess because there had been a scandal involving mishandling of funds. The athletic department was in a disarray, total disarray. They were having a funding crisis. And what a mess. I mean, people are concerned, could Tulsa Public Schools continue to even run an athletic program? I mean, things were that bad.
Mhm.
And because of everything that had occurred. And but Gil was, I was at, fittingly, it just worked out this way because I covered Gil's the press conference and talked with Gil earlier that day when he was named head coach, not head coach, although people always called him Coach Cloud, when he was named the interim athletic director. And I'm at the Rogers basketball game. There's an open seat next to me. He comes up and just starts talking and just has an exchange of ideas and tells me all these plans and ideas he had for Tulsa Public Schools, not just to get out of the mess they were in, but to help it become bigger and better than ever. And he's going through all these ideas, and I'm thinking to myself, like, well, these are a lot of ideas to accomplish in 4 months. How's he going to do this in 4 months? And of course, 4 months led to 9+ years, and what a period of growth for Tulsa Public Schools that it was, with the facilities that were added, and all the fundraising that's done to put Tulsa Public Schools athletics to take it to another level. And the Athletic Hall of Fame that he started, just so many things that he oversaw and helped. He was a driving force in that.
Uh, uh, there plenty of accomplishments to list, and you've mentioned a few. His crowning achievement is what?
Just that the crowning achievement right now, looking at TPS, his crowning achievement would be that TPS athletics is thriving right now, because that was really in doubt when he became the interim AD back in 2012. Like, what would TPS athletics be 10 years from now? Would there be a TPS athletics? And the fact that TPS is thriving right now. I mean, that's not to say things are easy, but TPS athletics are in a pretty good position right now, and good solid position. And you want to give Mick Wilson, the current athletic director, also his due too, because he's been the AD there for the last 3.5 years, and he worked under Gil and worked hand in hand with Gil pretty much, because Mick became the assistant AD back after, I think, right about the same time Gil was named permanent AD. So, and so I think Gil's had a big influence on Mick's career, and Mick continues that legacy that Gil's started.
Bill Haston wrote that Rogers, where Gil graduated from, should rename its football stadium Gil Cloud Stadium. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I'm all for it. I think that would be what a great tribute, and it'd be really fitting. I got some clarification earlier on why it wasn't named for him at the time. And there were several names proposed at that time. Dave Raiders was one of them. But the reason that Gil's name has not been on the stadium, a big reason is it's become the practice for TPS to try to avoid naming stadiums or field houses for people while they're living right now, just to avoid potential problems that occur if something were to be discovered later on about a person who's still alive, if they were to get in some scandal. It's just something that they would prefer not to. That's not to say it hasn't been done in the past. The Nathan Harris Fieldhouse at Booker T. Washington was named for him while he was alive. And of course, there was a little bit of controversy on that, if you remember, about it should have been named after Wayman. Some people argue that it should have been named for Wayman Tisdale. So TPS, and especially at the time when the Will Rogers Stadium was built, Gil was still athletic director of TPS. And so there was sort of like a double reason why it was not named for him at that time. The fact that he was in a position of power at the time and that he was still alive.
That's
So
fair. So you think they'll reconsider that now?
I think there's a good chance it will be reconsidered.
Yeah. Well, let's stay with the theme here. You saw the Rogers girls last night. They're having a pretty good year. Tell us about it.
Yeah, they're in a great era. This is the best era of Will Rogers girls basketball. The past 4 years, I saw them play last night, a wild game with East Central in a 5A playoff opener, and Rogers wound up winning by 65-53 over East Central. And Sanaya Morrison, standout player for Rogers. She's trying to get to the state tournament for the fourth time in 4 years at Rogers. And to put that in perspective, in the preceding 26 years of Rogers basketball before she arrived, they'd only qualified for state 3 times. And while she's been there, Rogers has won its only state tournament playoff game, won its only state tournament game. So this is really the best era ever for Will Rogers girls basketball. And the first 3 years, Carlin Atkinson was the coach. And now he's at Booker T. Washington doing a great job over there at his alma mater. And Jonna Johnson is the first year coach at Will Rogers, and she's doing a great job as the successor to Carlin Atkinson, continuing on the foundation that he built there. And for the second year in a row, Rogers and Booker T are going to meet in a regional final, which will be really interesting because this is the first time they've met since the coaching move was made. And last year, Rogers beat Booker T at Booker T in the regional final. So it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Let's switch over to boys just for a second. It seems like the Memorial boys in 5A are kind of rounding into form. What's going on with the Chargers?
Yes, at this time of the year, it's usually when they play their best basketball. And this year is no exception. They've won 6 state titles since 2013, and I'm not going to say they're going to win a state title this year, but it looks like after a 1-year hiatus that they're in good position to return to the state tournament. Of course, TPS is in great position to have 4 teams in 5A boys, which would be really an accomplishment if they were to sweep that. Because you look at Booker T, he's the favorite to win state in 5A, got Memorial, which they've tied. This is quite an accomplishment with all their history success. They have tied their school record for most wins in a boys regular season. Now they played 2 more games this year because of the increased limits that you can have, but still quite a feat. Then you've got the Rogers boys, Will Rogers boys. They're having their best season in arguably 30 years. They've only qualified for state once during that time, and they couldn't play because of COVID, unfortunately, back in 2021. And East Central having arguably its best season in over 10 years. And I know these developments, when I'm saying all best seasons and all these length of time, even though Gil's been retired from TPS for 3, almost 4 years, I know he was very happy at the positive trends that the athletic programs are doing, because his heart was with TPS all the way, even after being retired. And so he still stayed close to the scene with TPS. And so no, he'd be enjoying this. And Edison is another team. If one of those 4 teams don't make it, Edison is a team which ended the season with 6 straight wins. They went to the state tournament last year. So they're a team that's got some possibilities too.
What's going on for the rest of the week, Barry? You got games. We're filming this on a Wednesday afternoon. You'll be covering a lot of games this week. Tell us what you got coming.
Oh, well, be going to basketball on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And got want to mention Gil's memorial service, which will be at noon Saturday, March 1st at Will Rogers at their arena there. And so it's it's going to be a interesting week. Yes. Want to also mention, we've talked a lot about basketball, but state swimming championships wrapped up this week. And congratulations to Jenks for sweeping boys and girls this year. So what a dynasty that Jenks has in swimming. And the state wrestling championships are this weekend in Oklahoma City, Thursday through Saturday.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I thought we shot some swimming art, and I thought Daniel Schuler captured some nice images from the swimming championships. I love it. We don't shoot just a ton, unless it's football, a ton of regular season art for some of the other sports. But when we're able to go to these state championships and playoffs and really get some, swimming kind of lends itself to great art sometimes, I feel like. So I thought Daniel did a really good job on some photos there.
Agreed. I mean, some amazing celebration shots of them jumping into the pool with the trophies. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Ask me about my interview this
Oh,
morning,
Micah
Barry.
Tees. Yes, you've got don't want to overlook that. Micah Tees. You've got you just interviewed him and the former Booker T standout who went to Texas A&M and has now moved on to the University of Tulsa. And so tell us what we can look forward to from your talk with Micah.
Well, he's a very impressive young man. And I thought that 2 years ago when he and I spoke for a high school podcast, he had just gotten to A&M at the time, and I'm pretty sure we talked from his dorm room, and he may have talked to me on his phone. Um, and we were trying to shoot video on his phone. But and I remember thinking at the time, what an impressive, mature young man he is, and I really hope I get a chance to talk to him down the road. And I tried to make a couple of requests to interview him while he was at A&M, and it just never really worked out. And when he came back to talk to TU in December, when he announced, I was like, I gotta talk with him again. And so we hooked up this morning, and he was great. I mean, he's looking at this like he's happy to be home. Um, and I think the theme of the conversation was probably rejuvenation. I think he feels rejuvenated. I think he was very impressed with Coach Lamb and Coach Switzer and kind of what they're all about. And I think he's just looking for a fresh start. He's got a fresh perspective, and I think he's got some lofty goals. We spoke for about 15 minutes and just kind of talked about how the TU opportunity came about. What did he learn at College Station? He did not leave Texas A&M, mad, frustrated. He did not take transferring lightly. And he said that he's like, I didn't just do this willy nilly, but he really gave it some thought and sat down with his A&M coaches and just thought after to kind of get to where he would like to get in his football goals, he should look somewhere else. So he didn't take transferring lightly, but I think he's really, really excited about what lies ahead.
Well, I'm excited to see what he can do for TU. They can certainly use someone with his skill. And it's funny when you mention you're referring to Coach Switzer, you automatically think of Barry Switzer, but you're referring to Ryan Switzer. So
Yeah,
I
but
think he's got great potential. He's a young coach with a great future at TU.
yeah, totally agree. And I think and Micah Tees could be a potentially really key get for them. I know TU was a little bit inconsistent at quarterback last season, and their offense was, had their issues, but we'll see how they go. You never know, but I think it could be a real impactful season for Micah Tees.
But we'll look forward to that.
All right, what do you say we wrap it up, Barry? Anything else on your mind?
I think that'll do it. Looking
All
forward to the basketball playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, Barry and I will be back next week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.